Alright guys, how you doing? It's Rabea, hope you're all good. So the NAMM show is right around the corner, it's very much approaching, and I could actually be in America when this video is online. However, it's in support of my very good friends at Walrus Audio. Hopefully you are familiar with those dudes. They're awesome, they make great pedals. I've done quite a few demos for those guys in the past, and I love what they do. They got in touch with me around Christmas time and said, we've got a wicked new reverb pedal coming out, we'd love you to demo. And of course, I love reverb, I love ambient stuff, so I'm very much obliged. So it is my pleasure to introduce the Fathom Reverb pedal. What we're looking at here is it's the same form factor as the ARP87 Delay, which I did a demo on earlier, well last year. And what we've got is a reverb pedal with 4 different modes, some modulation, and a couple of really awesome features that are going to make this reverb pedal a little bit special. So the 4 modes are Hall, Plate, Lo-Fi, and Sonar. So quite self-explanatory for the most part. Hall is of course a Hall reverb, Plate being a plate reverb, a luscious nice plate reverb. Then we've got Lo-Fi, which is kind of like, I suppose you'd look at it like a high pass filter kind of reverb, so it's quite, sounds like AM radio kind of vibes, so it can be used for all sorts of cool textures. And then Sonar, which is, it's kind of a modified shim reverb, like a shimmer kind of reverb, so you've got a lower octave and a higher octave voice happening at the same time, and you've got control over how much of that you want blended in, and you've also got control over the different amounts of octave blended in if you so choose. So if you look at the controls on the pedal, you can see we've got decay, dampen, and mix along the top. One thing that's nice about the Fathom is that they've added a little line on the mix knob so that when you line it up with the dial, it means it's equal parts dry and wet signal. So it's nice that they've added that in there, because sometimes, well, it's a common feature, you know, dry and wet, but it's nice to know exactly where sits the perfect amount of reverb and dry signal, or should I say the exact same amounts. Then we've got the X knob, which is essentially, it serves different functions depending on the type of reverb you're using. So on Hall and Plate it affects pre-delay, on Lo-Fi it affects the filter width, so the amount of notching essentially. It's like an AM radio effect of course, so you can either have more or less low end and high end, so it becomes really quite filtered. And then on Sonar it controls, at halfway it's the exact same amount of the low octave and high octave, and then as you turn it up it's high octave, and as you turn it down it's just the low octave, so you can really blend how much of those octave voicings you want in there. Then we've got a 3-way toggle switch, which is your modulation amount, so we've got low, medium and high. And then we've got the program knob, which is just turning between the 4 different types of reverb. As I said, you've got Hall, Plate, Lo-Fi and Sonar. Another thing to point out before we move on is if you're using the Sonar reverb, you can actually toggle the modulation amount off if you want. So if you switch it to low, it will turn off, or you can have it on medium or high. And then we move on to the bypass switch, which also acts as trails mode, which essentially allows you to have trails of reverb when you turn off the pedal, or you can choose to have it stop dead when you turn it onto bypass. And how you toggle between those modes is basically hold the bypass switch down, plug the power in to toggle it one way, and then do the same thing, well, to turn it on or off basically. And then we've got a sustain switch, which is really cool because when you press it and hold it, it gives you a big long trail for as long as you want, and you can really build up those ambient swells and get some really cool textures going. So I can tell I'm going to like this pedal. But without further ado, let's see how it sounds. Okay, so let's hear the guitar straight into the Kraken. Dialed in like a crunch tone on gain 1, but when I split it down, you'll be able to hear that it sort of cleans up a bit. So we've got a nice range of tones. So here we go. So that's the guitar, and I've got everything kind of set to halfway on the Fathom right now. So there's a bit of decay, there's a little bit of dampening going on, and the mix is actually quite high so that we can hear the effect. I've got the X knob or the pre-delay all the way down on the whole reverb, and the modulation is at 0. So here we go. I just hit it a little bit hard at the end just so you could hear the sort of quality of the reverb. It's a good quality reverb, and that's just straight in. You can hear that it's sort of a nice algorithm, as I like to call it. You can really hear that it's quite natural sounding. Yeah, I'm digging it. Okay, so before we sort of mess around with too much of the controls, I'm just going to jump across to the plate, lo-fi and Sonar so that you can just hear what's going on between all the different reverbs. So we'll move on to plate. Sounds good. I like it. Let's move to lo-fi. Lo-fi, and again what I want to do really quickly is mess around with the X knob so you can hear the bandwidth change, so I'm going to do that. So there you go, when you turn it all the way up you're getting a lot more low end, a lot more warm. Roll it back out a bit. I like the fact that you have control over the amount of low end or not that you want in that lo-fi sound, because I think if it was just preset it would have less uses, but the fact that you've got control over that bandwidth is a really nice feature and I do dig that. So moving on, let's go to Sonar, and what I want to do is put the X knob in the middle so you're hearing both equal parts, low octave and high octave. Very full-bodied, you can hear both the low and the high octave there. So what I'm going to do, slam it over so you can hear the low octave on its own, and then we'll bring it in to the high octave. So those are the 4 reverb modes, and of course they can be customized how you wish, with the dampening, with the amount of decay and the mix, of course. What I'm going to do now is show you what the modulation mode will do. So I've gone back to whole reverb so you can hear a low amount of modulation, and then we'll put it onto medium and then high so you can hear just how much you're getting. It's a really nice modulation. I really liked that, especially on the ARP87 as well. You had that control over some of the delays, and I think it's just a nice way to add a little bit more texture and ethereal, dreamy vibes to your reverb. So that's very cool. Next, I'm going to show you the sustain pedal and how that works. Essentially, you just have to press and hold. So. I mean, I could get lost for hours with that. I really enjoy that. I think I'm glad that they've put that on the pedal, because I suppose just having that little extra feature of functionality somehow creates a whole new world to the pedal, just because you can just hold it and then add to it and create these big textures and big swells. It's very satisfying. So yeah, really, really impressive. So that's kind of an overview of the Fathom and the way it sounds, you know, going between all the different reverbs. And I showed you the modulation and essentially what the X knob does. What I want to do now is introduce the ARP87 and then basically just give you a load of tones and different sounds that you can get using the Fathom. So yeah, here we go. Well, there you go. There is the Walrus Audio Fathom Reverb pedal. It's fair to say that it's inspiring, to say the least. I've been messing around with a few different patches, and it's just, you start writing, you start feeling creative, and I've done plenty of pedals like that in the past, and it's one of those things that, like, it's worth telling you right now in the room that it's one of those pedals that when you get it, you plug it in, you start messing around, suddenly you start to feel inspired and stuff starts happening, you start to write things, and that is invaluable. So it really is a case of, if you like the way it sounds and you want to be inspired, then you should get this pedal. That's kind of my sort of ethos with it. And again, I've teamed it up with the ARP87. If you already got one of those reverb pedals, then the two go so well together. And I also threw in some dirty fuzz because I like that kind of big, swelly, sort of fuzzy, ambient sound. And basically, you've done a great job, Walrus. I think it's one of those pedals that I'm glad it's here, and I'm going to use it, and I'm going to put it on records and just have fun with it, because I love the modulation. I love that whirring. You've like, as far as the sort of modulated reverb and delays go, I haven't heard anything I find quite as musical as the Walrus stuff, and that's my personal opinion and feedback to you guys. So yeah, definitely thumbs up from me. If you like this pedal, you like what you've heard in this demo, I'll put links in the description box below. Please let me know what you think in the comments section below. Start some discussions, let me know what you think about it. Please like, subscribe and share, and I will see you all very soon.